The knock came at 6:30 in the morning, not loud, not aggressive, just deliberate. I was already awake. At my age, mornings tend to arrive before the sun does. I had a cup of coffee in my hand when I walked to the door, the house still dim except for the kitchen light behind me. When I opened it, a deputy sheriff stood on the porch. Clean uniform. Neutral expression, a large envelope tucked under one arm. "Morning, sir," he said. His tone had the careful politeness of someone delivering something unpleasant but routine. "I'm here with a property seizure order." For a second, the words didn't settle properly. They just floated there between us. He pulled the papers from the envelope and turned them toward me. My name was printed clearly at the top. Behind him, across the street, I noticed movement. My daughter and her husband were standing near their driveway. They weren't pretending not to watch. They were standing openly, arms folded, waiting. That was when the pieces started to arrange themselves. The deputy held the papers out. "I'll need you to review this." I took them without rushing. Across the street, my daughter cupped her hands around her mouth. "You should have signed those papers sooner." Her voice cut through the quiet morning air, like it had been waiting all night to be released. Her husband added, louder, "Just pack up and get out. Don't make it harder than it needs to be." The deputy shifted slightly, uncomfortable now that the audience had become part of the scene. I didn't respond to them. Instead, I looked down at the document. The porch boards creaked softly under my weight as I leaned against the railing and began reading. The deputy waited. I could feel my daughter staring from across the street. Waiting for anger. Waiting for an argument. Waiting for something that would confirm the story she had already decided this moment would tell. But anger wasn't what came. Mostly it was memory. The house had been mine for 32 years. I built the back porch myself when my daughter was 9. She used to sit on the steps with a popsicle while I worked, asking questions about every tool in the box. Years pass quietly until suddenly they don't. 6 months ago, she started bringing papers to the house. "Just a transfer agreement," she said the first time. "Just a formality," the second time. By the third time, her husband had started talking more than she did. Estate planning. Efficiency. Avoiding probate. The language sounded professional, but the pressure underneath it wasn't subtle. I told them I needed time to review everything. They told me time wasn't necessary. Eventually, I stopped answering the door when they brought the documents. Across the street, my daughter spoke again. "You can't stall forever!" Her voice had the sharp edge of someone who believed the ending was already guaranteed. The deputy cleared his throat gently. "Sir, I do need to ask you to acknowledge receipt." "I will," I said. I turned another page. Everything looked official enough at first glance. Legal phrasing, county seal, authorizing signature. But something felt slightly off, not dramatic, just slightly out of alignment. I read the line describing the property again. Then again. The deputy shifted his weight. Across the street, my son-in-law called out, "You can read it all day if you want. It doesn't change anything." I looked up and smiled faintly. Then I turned back to the deputy. "Can I ask you one question?" "Of course." I tapped the page lightly. "Did anyone verify the parcel number on this order against the county property records before bringing it out here?" The deputy blinked once. He looked down at the paper again. The parcel number sat halfway down the page in small print, something most people wouldn't even notice. He read it silently. Then he looked up at the house behind me. Then back at the page. Across the street, my daughter stopped talking. The deputy pulled a small notebook from his pocket and checked something. His expression shifted, not dramatically, but enough. "Just a moment, sir." He stepped off the porch and walked a few feet down the driveway, dialing his phone. The conversation was quiet. I couldn't hear the other voice, but I could hear the tone change as the deputy spoke. More cautious, more precise. Across the street. My daughter and her husband leaned toward each other, whispering. For the first time that morning, neither of them was yelling. The deputy listened for a long moment, then said, "Understood," and ended the call. He walked back toward the porch. His posture had changed slightly, not confrontational, just more formal. "Sir," he said carefully, "this order references a parcel associated with a pending filing that has not yet been validated for enforcement." I waited. He continued, "In simpler terms, the legal description attached to this document does not match the property standing in front of me." Across the street, my son-in-law stepped forward. "What does that mean?" The deputy didn't raise his voice. "It means I cannot execute this order here today." My daughter's face tightened. "That's ridiculous. The paperwork is correct." The deputy folded the document slowly. "The parcel number references a subdivision adjustment, currently under review by the county clerk. Until that process is finalized and a corrected enforcement order is issued, there is no authority for property seizure." Her husband tried again. "You're telling me this whole thing just stops?" "I'm telling you," the deputy said evenly, "that this is a civil matter requiring proper documentation. Today's order does not authorize removal of the current occupant." Silence settled over the street. No one had prepared for that sentence. The deputy placed the papers back inside the envelope. He turned toward me and gave a small nod. "I apologize for the disturbance this morning." "It's not your fault," I said. Across the street, my daughter looked away first. Her husband muttered something under his breath, but the confidence from earlier had drained out of him. The deputy walked back to his car. The engine started. A minute later the cruiser rolled slowly down the street and disappeared around the corner. The morning returned to its usual quiet. Birds in the trees. A lawn sprinkler somewhere down the block. My daughter and her husband stood in their driveway for another moment. Neither of them came over. Eventually they went back inside their house. I stayed on the porch. The coffee in my mug had gone cold. The house behind me was still the same house I had walked into every night for 3 decades. Nothing about the morning felt like a victory. A piece of paper hadn't repaired anything that had broken between a father and his daughter. That distance was still there. Maybe wider now, but the house was still standing. And for the moment, so was I.